Welcome back to Terrence and Roy at the Movies. We've just been to see Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron and James McAvoy. It's a spy thriller, kind of action-y thing, directed by David Leitch, I believe, or David Lech. There's no good way to pronounce his name. Either one makes him sound creepy, but he's one half of the former stuntman team that directed John Wick, the first one, and apparently they really, really like him because he's also going to be directing Deadpool 2 coming up here fairly shortly, so... how did you feel overall about Atomic Blonde? How did you...
Going into the movie, I was kind of apprehensive about the movie because it's... Honestly, the previews kind of just missed the spot for me. Mm-hmm. Going into the movies, I know they were saying it was supposed to be the next James Bond. Overall, I just think it kind of missed the point, kind of missed me a little bit. It was a good movie overall, but it was kind of really, really violent, and
it was surprisingly violent. I guess, yeah. I mean, it was more violent than the previews led on to it be.
It was really, really violent, and I didn't understand this in the previews, which kind of really turned me off from the entire movie. And in the previews, this is actually set in the past. Nowhere in the previews do they actually explain that.
Yeah.
So when I was seeing the previews, I'm like, who dresses like that? And it threw me completely off.
Yeah, the movie takes place in 1989 Berlin, right before the Berlin Wall falls, which is kind of in the background of the story. So
yeah,
and that kind of brings me to one of my first points, which is they use licensed music throughout this constantly, in the same way that a lot of people would say like Guardians of the Galaxy did, though realistically, movies have been doing that for many years, but people really got hip to it recently with Guardians of the Galaxy. So
I'm not sure if you've seen Baby Driver yet, but
I haven't seen it yet.
Baby Driver does exactly the same thing.
It's a very popular thing to do now.
But a small thing that kind of bothered me about the movie, in the music specifically, now that you bring it up, at certain points the music was way louder than the actual dialogue. And they kept cutting in and out from being headphone music to like full blaring music.
Yeah, that was weird because they got the two things where the people are talking a lot more about like diegetic music versus non-diegetics when it's actually like relevant to the story. So like when she's listening to it on like headphones, it's actually in the story, and then it's not, and it keeps going back and forth between the two. It's just like she's listening to it, but then it's super loud and the audience can hear it.
I get it. It was kind of cool perspective to kind of do it that way.
Yeah.
But sometimes the music was super, super loud, and then and then they would add in even louder gunshots and explosions, and I was like, okay, it made me jump out of my seats a couple times. I'm just like, you guys were really intense with the audio. But let's go back to more of the main point.
Well, I want to say two things about the music first. One, I think the main negative thing about the music, the main positive thing about the music is it takes place in 1989 Berlin. All the songs they use are pretty applicable to what you would think of in terms of 1989 and maybe Berlin. I wasn't in Berlin at that point, but
yeah.
But so that was kind of the good thing. The bad thing for me is the way that people do music like that. It's usually either related to the story or some way or something like that, or it's like picked for a specific moment. If I ever got any of my projects made, like some of the movies that I would make would probably be like that. They'd probably have to use a lot of licensed music set to very specific scenes.
Yeah.
But when I envision it like the music with the scene, and it's critical to both of them. Mm-hmm. And this was more like, there were certain ones that were applicable, but there were a lot that were, they were just kind of, it was almost like they were like, here's a list of the scenes we have, here's the list of the songs we could get. Do something with them. It didn't seem like it was conceived,
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were super inappropriate, too, for the tone but.
I didn't pay attention to that as much, but I think they definitely could have taken a page out of a good show that's coming back out, Stranger Things. I felt like Stranger Things timing and the error was really well done, and I feel like this movie kind of missed that a little bit, and sometimes you're right, the music would take you out of the moment. And I think that's what I was kind of digging at. It would take you out of the moment because it's like, now they're going into the headphones. Mm-hmm. Now they're going back out. Now they're kind of now it's kind of really intense.
Yeah. Well, when you said a new show that was coming back up, I immediately thought of Mr. Robot, because I didn't think you were doing the time thing. I thought you were doing the licensed music thing, because Mr. Robot has some of like the best licensed music moments I've ever seen. Like that's a show where like he obviously conceives of individual scenes with the song set to them, you know?
Yeah.
So that made me think of that, and the thing about the music is it has the same problem as the writing. Like the music, they do the regular versions of the song, and a couple times they do the same thing, which is they bring back these slower, more melodramatic versions of the songs.
Yep.
And that problem is the same problem that the writing kind of has with the movie, which is the writing thinks it's a lot cleverer and more witty than it actually is.
Yeah. It's just true. Honestly, it's, you know, when you stack, you know, and I'm going to kind of go back to the movie now, but when you stack Atomic Blonde to all the other hits of movies that have been constantly coming out, it's just really kind of middle of the road. Good job bringing out the movie when there's no other movies that really came out over this week. But it's going to be quickly forgotten with Dark Tower coming out next week. And I don't see this staying in a movie theater very long, especially with Spider-Man: Homecoming. You got Planet of the Apes. It's coming into a very competitive market.
Oh, all kinds of things. And we're about to hit early Halloween season. A bunch of people are releasing their horror and crime movies in August starting, so.
Yeah, no, it's also, so it's, this is going to be a movie that is going to kind of get washed out. Maybe be a good Redbox movie. Like, oh yeah, I forgot this movie even came out. But, after this week, I don't see too many people talking about it. Especially when you got TV shows like Games of Thrones and...
Yeah, I mean, people really like the actors. People really like Charlize Theron and James McAvoy and everything. And they did a good job with what they were given. They just weren't given a whole lot, and that made it kind of...
I just think they could have did it better. It's a true, especially with James McAvoy. The movie he did previous to this was Split was absolutely awesome.
I was thinking about Split. It's probably one of my favorite movies recently.
And you still see the wonderful acting. Yeah. I felt like their acting elevated the movie a lot. Two things kind of took it out. Took me out of the movie is the error, the setting of the movie kind of took me out of it. Kind of hard to believe because I don't think they really kind of sold me on that. And then one of the things that kind of took me out of the movie, it just, I don't know how distracting it was for you, but the way they're narrating the story is that they keep splitting back to when the main lead actress is sitting in the interrogation room and she's going through it, but she keep jumping back, and it was super confusion to me. Yeah, and it kept taking me out of the story. I'd rather you tell me the story and then at the end flashback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did one of those things where they set it up where it's all her telling an interview about what happened, basically, and yeah. And I understand why they did it, and it kind of worked at the beginning, but they just kept doing it throughout the whole thing, and I feel like eventually they should have laid off of it for a while and come around.
And then bring it back at the end. Mm-hmm. And then so. And here's the thing: she's going through. She's trying to figure out who can she trust, who she can't trust. Mm. And and then so they play on that, that whole dynamic of she can't trust anybody. She keeps getting backstabbed. Things are going wrong. It starts to kind of confuse you. And I'm a seasoned movie guy, and I watch a lot of movies, but I found myself pretty much 20 minutes from the end, what just happened?
Yeah, they try a lot of twisty and turny spy stuff where they're double cross again, and they just do it too many times in too many ways to the point where it doesn't even become compelling. It just becomes bad writing where you're just I don't know what anybody's motivation is. I don't know what's going on.
Honestly, this is going to be one of those movies where you walk out and maybe one or two of you guys may get it, but if you go with the family, it's going to be a conversation in the car of what just happened.
I'm 80% sure about what happened in the end. There's still part of the end I don't know for a fact if it is what I think it is. And it's not intentional, it's just bad filmmaking. And so, I mean, I was
okay with the ending. But it's one of those moments where it's action happened, things got blown up, the acting was pretty good. I don't understand the movie. I don't understand the ending. I'm just gonna be okay with it. I'll sleep easy. But if you're not okay with it, you're probably gonna have to read up on like what actually happened on the ending to actually understand exactly how everything tied together.
Well, even assuming that like I know the part of the ending that I know, even like knowing it, it's not satisfying. It's not a satisfying ending. Without going into it, it's not. It's just I didn't feel good about it afterwards.
Well, you know why it wasn't so satisfying?
Why?
Because you were confused on who the villain and who the good guys were. I was confused.
Yeah, to a certain extent, there's definitely an element of that. They kind of went back and forth. They're just like, oh, Ares is great, everybody's good, everybody's bad. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, without going too far into it, it's like, yeah, they did a lot of spy. I got a lot of spy double cross stuff, really, and the action was fine, but. The action wasn't even as good as like the original John Wick or anything. I don't think personally.
I was just going to ask you that, like, when you match it up against other spy kind of movies, Kingsman. You talk about James Bond.
Yeah, I definitely like Kingsman and James Bond better. Things like that.
You talk about even John Wick. I like both those movies better.
And John Wick did a much better version of the like. He's kind of a good guy, kind of a bad guy.
And I'm trying to think of other movies.
This felt like a weird rip-off of John Wick. It wasn't intentional because it's from a graphic novel. It's not related at all. So it's not like the director came up with John Wick and was like, I'll do a slightly different version. It's not like that. It's just coincidental. But
so So what are your thoughts about like what else happened? Like, is there anything else you want to highlight?
The directing, as bad as kind of the story ended up being, and as bad as some of the dialogue was, there were moments that were compelling, partially because, like you said, they were elevated by the acting, and the directing was good. Mm-hmm. It was almost trying too hard in certain areas, which I think partially was the story too, but it was good overall, so it was a very mixed bag of a movie, really.
Yeah, no, positives that I really liked about it, acting was pretty good. I liked how they started to kind of narrate what was going on with the Berlin Wall. So they were trying to tie it back into history. Hey, maybe this actually did happen. Maybe this was like the hidden war that was happening behind the scenes. But got a little confusing towards the end. Got confusing on the different kind of who really were the bad guys. Who were the informants? In the last 20 minutes, they pretty much leave you all with all these question marks, and then they try to jam everything in and try to explain it. Like when you do that, you have to be on point. It has to be explosive revelations, mm-hmm. and it just kind of missed the boat. And so I'm very similar to you on that. If you ask me, when it comes to rating this, it's on the probably bottom tier of really good, like, spy or, those like, detective movies. If I had to give this rating, I would give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel you about the ending, like, the last 20 minutes or so. Like, I thought the dialogue was the problem originally, and that the story was solid, but then you get the last 20 minutes, you're like, oh no, the story's just lost its mind too, so... But the directing was good and some of the acting was good, so I'm actually exactly in line with you. I was going to say, it's not a terrible movie, but it's not a great movie. It's like a 5. That's about where it is, really.
You know what they they were trying to narrate the end and trying to like show you the scenes like, this is what they did when you weren't looking. This is what like they kind of like went to the leap of faith and like, mm-hmm. Hey, true. This is what she didn't trust anybody, so this is what the person did, which is cool. But I rather would have just had her with her own mouth just say, or Morgan Freeman chime in,
like exposition,
like actually this is what happened.
Or like the end, like the Shawshank Redemption or whatever.
Morgan Freeman.
Well, that day we learned she did stuff. Yeah, okay. Well. You're gonna be out of town next week, but I'm pretty excited for the Dark Tower. So maybe I'll do something on the Dark Tower before you come back, and then maybe when you come back, if you've seen it or something, we'll do like a spoiler version of the Dark Tower. Maybe I'm pretty excited for. I'm surprisingly excited for the Dark Tower. I haven't read the graphic novels, but
from what everybody tells me, it's well written.
Yeah, so we'll look into that next week, and until then, we were kind of on Atomic Blonde. See it if you really like those people. I don't know.
Well, our very next one is going to be Games of Thrones coming out tomorrow.
Of course, Game of Thrones tomorrow.
So Game of Thrones. Please click subscribe below if you find our information useful. We're doing this as pals. To help you guys be able to figure out what's going to be the hits of the year or what's going to be the misses of the year.
We might have to do a year-end video about what we liked and didn't like, because at the end of the day, we've had some very different opinions so far. So,
I'm ready for that debate.
All right. Well, until then, we'll see you next time.